I am Justin Verrier, and joining me, Rob Mahoney, j.kyle, Mann, back in action after the holiday break. Rob, how you feeling? Are you back into potting shape? Do you need to run a couple wind sprints before you do this one?
I definitely do. I'm out of breath and we haven't even started. I feel bloated. I feel like the salt is coming out through my pores. Do you have any remedies for me? Is it just wind sprints? Is that all that I can turn to?
I can't help you, brother. I could definitely feel my face as the week went on because I was just consuming so much sugar. I was doing like double pie days for multiple days, pretty much up until yesterday.
I mean,
yeah. So I'm feeling it.
This is like Thanksgiving weekend is peak pie season. You're right, Justin. It's like on the night of, you're almost too starch inclined to really give dessert its due. And then over the weekend, it's like, yeah, I'll have pie for breakfast. Yeah, I'll have pie for a snack. Yeah, I'll have pie for dessert. The numbers get on the board, Kyle.
Yeah, I played pickup on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. and I knew when I went to bed because we were hitting the leftovers. We had Thanksgiving on Friday, Thursday and Friday, and then leftovers on Saturday, and we nibbled on them at night. And I was like, this is probably going to be bad when I wake up. And when I was, when you start to kind of try, Rob knows this, as you get into your later pickup years, you're just trying to get the belts on the car warm before you start to take off. And as I'm kind of moving around, I definitely felt like I was wearing one of those home ec like pregnant suits where I was just kind of like, I could feel everything on the front of my abdomen moving. I was like, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really bad. But I don't know. I'm always a victim to like some really rich mashed potatoes, some sweet potatoes, and Megan makes a pumpkin pie that is world class, I have to say.
Now we're talking. But to divert quickly, did you have to do the home ec fat suit? Was this a part of your curriculum?
I'm just a fat suit, or you could just say you're fat. I don't know. At some point, it's not a suit. It's on your body, I guess. But anyway,
interesting.
Yeah. This was available to high schoolers, like.
You all didn't have that? Like, you didn't have the, like, hey, here are the consequences of parenthood things? Like, there's the baby with the little thing. I never had to do these things, but I saw my friends doing them because I never took home ec.
That's the one we had, is we had the, like, animatronic baby with the sensor in it, and, like, certain, you were literally, like, coupled up, and then you had to, like, alternate taking the baby home and taking care of it. It's a ridiculous thing. There's no way that people still do that.
A lot of things that adults were doing back in the day just to keep people from having sex. Like, we'll create animatronic babies, but we just won't hand out condoms to people. It's just like, what are we doing?
Group chat wonders, what are we doing?
What are we doing? Also, I have to, since we're just going through the PSA here, I have to say, so I went to the movie theater the other day, and I could already feel the cold coming on here. I know that the theater experience is struggling right now, and we appreciate your patronage. But if you are sick, fucking stay home, because there was a person next to me who was sniffling and blowing her nose the entire movie. And that's not only rude because it's disrupting the human experience that is being conveyed to you via the screen, but I'm definitely going to get sick because you. Stay the fuck home, watch Netflix, it's fine.
Thank you for coming to our NBA podcast to hear your takes on pie, on home economics in high schools in America, and apparently on the theatrical experience.
This is why I go to movies late at night when nobody's there. I told Rob I went to see Predator Badlands, 10 p.m. showing. I had my nachos. I had a double IPA. I was the only person in the whole fucking theater, and it was heaven. I swear to God, it was nirvana. I even walked in and was like looking for my seat really carefully, and I was like, what am I doing? There's no one coming. There's no... Justin, this is how you can avoid getting sick in a movie theater.
It's true.
This is what you should do.
I went to a 3:40 showing, and it was just a calamity of errors where not only did I have Sicky over there just fucking wrecking my immune system, but also next to me, this woman was doing like her own version of a Mr. Bean skit where she had like so many like concession stand items, but like fell before she got to the seat. And then she was like falling over, and also like thought that she lost her pocketbook, but ended up deciding after like 30 minutes of discussion that she probably left it in the car. And then that wasn't the worst one, because the two women on the other end were talking
Noticing
during the
a gender
climax.
pattern here, Verrier.
Well,
okay. Well,
I didn't pick my seatmates, unfortunately, but I'm wearing a WNBA hat. I support women, I'm an ally. So.
If you're explaining, you're losing. That's what they say.
But the two non-gendered people at the end of the row there talking during the emotional climax. Like, what are you doing? I'm just trying to feel emotions. You're out here fucking discussing what's going on.
I'm a shusher in a theater. I will do it. Yeah.
I will do it. Yeah.
I also went to the movies this weekend. A guy brought a full-on puppet And before the movie
Are
started,
you just trying to one?
I'm not, guys. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to one up you. I'm just saying. I'm just reporting. A guy brought a puppet, and he was like taking pictures and video, like doing a little selfie cam, I guess for TikTok or whatever, of him and his puppet in the chair. I wish only to God that I were close enough to hear the commentary from him and the puppet, but sadly it was all at a distance, and I was baffled by the entire experience. So if you know this guy who apparently reviews movies or something with his puppet, I would love a link drop.
Were you seeing sentimental value, or was the puppet seeing it?
That would be a decision being made by that guy. But no, it was Wake Up Dead Man, the new Knives Out joint.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We had a puppetry
we still haven't talked about the NBA. We're
I know.
6 minutes in.
This is the last thing.
Okay,
at UConn, they actually give a degree out for that. It's like a major.
Well, yeah, it's an art form. But this guy was not participating in the art form. He was just a guy at a movie theater with a puppet doing God knows what.
You bring an unwanted puppet into a space, and you have entered into a different phylum of person. Like, it's just kind of, I'm very dubious of you automatically. You got to win me back.
All right. On that note, want to talk about the NBA? Can't tell if that was like the best 7-minute opening or the worst, but we'll find out. I'm sure people will tell us one way or another. You're listening to the Verrier NBA show presented by FanDuel. FanDuel now displays your bet directly on your phone's lock screen. And with the latest updates to the live events and player pages, it's never been easier to be part of the game. And Missouri, get excited because FanDuel's coming your way December 1st. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app now and play your game. 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. All right, so we're at the official quarter mark of this season. I think it really is either today or tomorrow, depending on what team it is. 20 some odd games for most of these teams. So this is a good time to take a step back and assess, which means that we're going to break out a tried and true bit here on group chat. That's the title pie, which we usually wait until January, February to do, but I feel like it's now is a good time to bust it out in order to get a snapshot of where the title race is. Right, Rob? It feels like we know enough data at this point. I'm starting to think about teams more in like significant long-term stakes.
I like the early pie check-in. And Justin, I have to say, one of your greatest creations in the history of this podcast, the title pie. It's not going to be fully baked after today. This is more of a par baking sort of experience, but we're getting it ready. All right, we're getting our crust settled. We're trying to understand how to break this thing down, and it's the perfect way to come out of Thanksgiving pie season.
Kyle, you're new to the pie. Mm-hmm. Any questions before we start a bacon?
It seems pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I did a lot of jiggering and reconfiguring in my figuring out how to get it to add up to 100. And, because I'm not good at math, that's kind of that's mainly what I'm getting at. No, just figuring out who deserved to be in the pie, which I guess is the whole point of this discussion, right? I'm excited about it. I think it's a great idea.
Well, should we lay it out like very literally what we're doing for people who have not experienced the title pie exercise before, Justin? How do we want to introduce them and walk them through it?
Actually, I'm curious, if you don't mind, if you might want to lay it out here. I just would love to see someone else try to explain this thing.
Okay, if we're taking the probability of who is going to win the NBA title this season, how do you break it down among the entire field of teams right now? And usually the point of differentiation for all of us is like even how many teams make that cut. How many teams are you willing to consider as actual championship contenders? And then how do you break up the percentages among them?
Right. And the way we've done this in the past is that we're all collectively trying to make one pie, correct? We each brought our own chops and how much of a percentage each one will get, but we will make one pie as a trio. You guys were actually mentioned before we got here or got onto the mics that you guys actually did it visually. Were you on like spreadsheets, just plotting it in, or are we hand drawing these pies?
I'm not hand drawing a chart. Come on, this is Excel's bread and butter. Why would I get in the way of it doing its thing?
I enjoy, just for my own satisfaction, I'll draw graphs and things sometimes in my notes, because it's I don't know, there's something nice about doing that. But what's the weirdest? How weird do you go with your own charts for yourself? I don't know, Justin, if you do this much, but Rob, do you go like X and Y axis with like scatter kind of thing, or I'm mostly a line graph guy. I feel like when I'm trying to make a point, but I'll occasionally go pie. How weird do you get with it, Rob? I'm just curious, because it seems like you'd be capable of going pretty weird.
I mean, it's either line, bar, or pie. Scatter, I think you would reserve for like the deeper, like entire field of players kind of dig. But like, why would I be doing that when, Kirk can do it? Like, there are many more qualified chart makers and mathematicians doing this stuff that we're just dabbling.
I only use notes apps, and most of my notes are like, that's fucking sick. Like, I was watching Case and Wallace, like, big hands, cool. Those are my notes.
It's worked for scouting reports for entire generations. Why do we need to change anything now?
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's start at the top here. So 100% pie, we're cutting it up. OKC Thunder, I imagine, is getting the heaping portion, or at least the biggest slice. I have them at 35%. What about you guys?
I have them at 40%.
I
think it's the biggest number that I've given to any team in the history of us doing title pie.
Pie history.
We're making pie history today. Whoa. And what better team to make it with than the Oklahoma City Thunder? Like, how can you not be bowled over by their prospects, given everything that they've shown us so far?
I think there are a lot of factors at play. I think the more interesting thing for me, obviously that's why we would continue talking about it. For me, I'm new to the pie game, and for me, it was sort of, we're talking about calibrating and things. I actually started a little higher, and I was like, that's when I started adding the other teams. I was like, this is a little too high. So I brought it down, but I think it speaks to sort of the temptation to inflate their chances to do it, because if you're building on last year they had a little bit of the show me thing of like, we needed to see it. Once we saw it, you have all these different factors about the development that we've talked about, all these variables that are just sitting there like stocks, just that are just appreciating and gaining value. And then you have the added benefit of Shea publicly being like, we weren't satisfied with the way that went, the way it ended. You got all these people chirping about like, well, Halliburton went down. Indiana absolutely was in that game when he went down. Just shutting those people up, I think, is another added layer of incentive to be like, these guys are hungry. They're not going to let up. So, yeah, I mean, I'm motivated that was my motivation to be like, yeah, they have a huge chance to win.
Makes sense that they would make pie history. They're currently 20-1 as we're doing this exercise. I saw the one loss that they had, and we've talked about it in the past, where they were depleted more than usual. They lost to the Blazers. They get their revenge back at home in Portland today. Wasn't able to go and see that, but they've won 12 in a row since then. The longest streak in the NBA currently going. J-Dub just comes back, and they look seamless. He hasn't played particularly well, but Hartenstein goes out. It doesn't matter. Whenever they lose an all-NBA guy, whenever they lose like a critical role player, it doesn't matter because they have like 4 of these guys just waiting in the wings. And so I guess the question more for me, Rob, is yes, I think this team is a regular season juggernaut. I think going to challenge for the win record if all things go well, unless they lose Shea or multiple guys all at once. But I think the bigger thing is playoffs and how they stack up and how they actually measure up against probably the next 2 teams on the list.
For sure. I think they shut down defensively a lot of the actions that the Nuggets and the Rockets are going to throw out there. And yeah, Houston's offensive rebounding is going to be a problem. Jokic, for as formidable as Alex Caruso may have been, swiping and holding his own in that matchup at times, and you can throw all kinds of stuff at him, is an incredible puzzle for any defense to solve. I just think the way that the Thunder guard gives them the highest floor, even in the playoffs, of any team out there. And so like their margin for error becomes so daunting when they have that level of defense. They have the MVP. They have the supporting stars. They have the deepest roster in the league. Like, they're not perfect, and they certainly won't be in the playoffs. There's going to be ugly games. There's going to be moments where their series feel tight just by the nature of how they play and the ebbs and flows of their shooting and stuff like that. But a lot has to go wrong for them to lose, and it's not just like one thing. It can't be one injury. It can't be one, aspect of their play. They're just so well-rounded and ultimately have such a strong foundation.
I can't think of another team. Tell me if you all feel this way, because I do when I think about the Thunder. I can't think of another team that has had an MVP level player on it where I realize to myself when I'm thinking about the team, it's not the thing that my basketball mind is drawn to first. It's the depth, it's the continuity, it's the shell, it's the defense, like we talked about with Chet. It's all these things, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, and they have the MVP on their team. It's just crazy. And I mean, remember last year in the playoffs, they had times where they would kind of bog a little bit, and we'd be like, is it that they are just, there's so many cooks that they're kind of being really deferential in a way? I don't know. Are we past that? Do we think that they have learned their lessons from last year? those are kind of outlying questions for outstanding questions. But yeah, with Shea, he's not always the first thing that I think of when I think of him. Which is weird, but it may just be me. I don't know.
I saw someone refer to their depth of wings as like having multiple Drew Holidays just all up and down the roster. And I think naturally we gravitate toward that type of player, especially for a top heavy roster. Cause I don't know, that's kind of like the blogger chic guy, but obviously the defense is the strength of this team. And Shea just kind of adds the offensive punch on top of that. But you're right. It does feel like the defense is the superstar and Shea is almost like the 1B in this situation. I guess because Shea is also, in terms of like celebrity, definitely hasn't broke through in that regard. And also the defense has been historic for this entire run. I think that's 103 defensive rating right now. But I think the one question I have in matchups is the size, because it's the one thing that they lack. And it seems like they're reticent in order to go out and get on the trade market, even though they can go out and get practically everyone they want as a backup big man. I would be surprised if Presti went and did that this year. Especially considering the success, especially considering the way that they want to play, spread out and ISOing practically every guy there. And so that's why I was a little bit lower in terms of pie with the Thunder. I had them at 35%. Then I had the Nuggets and the Rockets, because it almost seems like both of those teams are built to press on that one disadvantage. We'll see with the Nuggets with Aaron Gordon. Pretty worried about the fact that this is another soft tissue injury for him. They've been absolutely gangbusters offensively since he's been out in those 6 games. And then the Rockets obviously have the strength on the boards, but that's why. So just to give the full pie for my top 3, I have Thunder 35, Nuggets 23, Rockets 18, which is a little bit more compacted because I see that race as those 3, but also I could also see playoffs dictating and matchups and health who ultimately comes up on top of that one.
Yeah. Ultimately, like, I mean, the size question with them is interesting, Justin, because it's like they do start, all things being equal, Hartenstein and Chet together. And Shea is certainly big for I guess it depends on who you're classifying as the point guard between, he is offensively, Case and Wallace is kind of defensively. Lou Dort isn't long, but he's big, like he's bulky and strong. And like they have ways to kind of impose their length or their strength through unconventional means. And so, yeah, next to a team like Denver or Houston, there's going to be ways in which they don't seem as big. But I think they make up for it, like generally speaking, and certainly within those matchups. Like I fully expect them to not only be able to compete with those teams physically, but turn it to their advantage with their speed, with their frenzy, with everything that they throw at you. But those are their biggest tests, right? I think Denver and Houston, like those are the teams they need to match up with, to the point that I was thinking if they made it through the West and they were in the finals against an East team and J-Dub and Chet did not play, would I still pick the Thunder to win? And I think I might against basically any team to come out of the East.
Yeah.
So here's the question, though. Yeah. Like the counter to the size would just be the shooting and being able to stretch and force the bigs to play that game. Do the Thunder, Kyle, have they satisfied any worry you have based on last year's postseason with their shooting success this year? Because they're kind of in the middle of the league at this point. And other than Shea, I think one thing you could say is like the offense has been good, but not electric in the way that Denver's, for instance. Denver's number 1 in the NBA at this point. Mm-hmm. Houston has been there in the past. I think they've slid all the way to number 2. And so it does, like, you could see a matchup kind of playing out in the way that you feared it might last postseason.
I'm interested to see how much the Nuggets go to, I don't know if they would tip their hand on something like this early in the season, assuming that this matchup could happen. I mean, if we see would we see the Stroganoff lineup? What ended up being the correct term? Somebody
meat
gave
locker.
Us the meat locker.
Stroganoff is good. Bourguignon was the one that's a little wrong side of the EU.
That's right.
Yeah. If we see the Bourguignon line up against them, I think that's
Kyle, come on. You got to get your beef straight. We are Stroganoffing
you
from
gotta
here
get your
on
beef straight,
forward.
man. That sounds like the worst advice before somebody goes to prison. Yeah. No, I think when I'm looking at the top, my top 3, I had Thunder 40%, I had Nuggets 20%, I had Houston 10%. So I don't even really have them on Denver. That's more of a they'll earn it. It's not a quality sort of an indictment on them, but I think they do something between the 3 teams that I think is interesting when you look at I think the way the Nuggets and the Rockets defend a certain type of player, the Thunder don't have this problem. But I was looking at who were the guys who have amassed the most points against these two teams, and there are patterns. Like if you look at the Nuggets, it's a lot of dribble shooter guys. Curry, obviously, you can kind of he lights everybody up, but Booker, Ant, even Reed Shepherd had some big games. Guys that can put some. Now when Brown is back, I guess that's sort of a caveat there. That could matter. But the other one that's interesting for the Rockets, there is a really interesting pattern among the guys that have given them trouble on defense. And that is Giannis, obviously, Jokic, obviously, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Franz, PJ, Chet. So big plus size forwards who can handle the ball, which got me thinking. I was just like, is that a matter of Tari's maybe not tall enough to guard some of these guys? KD's not wanting to contain the ball as much. Jabari may be a better helper than he is an assignment guy. I'm just comparing the different defensive issues that these teams have. OKC can stress those things between those two things, and B, the Thunder, the other direction, don't have the same types of weaknesses, I feel like, on defense, and I think that's another way they separate.
I would worry, I guess, if I'm the Rockets and I want to go big, and it seems like they've really settled on that as their identity, and it makes sense because we keep talking about how they're over 40% in offensive rebound percentage. That's going to go down. It's going to go down. Currently 41.2%. So it looks like it's going well. I think that's before today's game. I guess if you don't have another wing stopper out there, if it's KD, Reed now, who's starting, we should mention, has looked pretty good. They just kept him in the starting lineup after KD got back. He's shooting the lights out, so I imagine he's going to stay there until they come up to some of these defensive issues. But it's Reed, Mann, KD, and then two bigs. If you have two creators like J-Dub and Shea and then Chet, who are we putting on him? And so it becomes a little dicey at that point. So you're right, the matchups perhaps don't favor them, and that's why I just keep going back to Denver though. Cam Johnson is finally cooking. If Aaron Gordon was healthy, and that's going to be a big if. That's the one person I don't know if the Thunder necessarily have an ultimate counterbalance for, because he is that big, bulky forward who basically plays like a center, whereas he's gonna put Chet in the straitjacket. He's gonna just power bomb him through the tables there. It seems like Denver does have the trump card in terms of just matching up, as long as they can stay healthy.
That series is going to turn into a dogfight, a bloodbath. If OKC and Denver are on a collision course again, it's appointment viewing for all of us, and needless to say would be OKC's biggest test. I think I'm just a little more bullish on how they do it and handle it the next time around, and how much they learn from the first part of the experience. We talk about that all the time with high-level playmakers like Jokic or like Luka. You don't want to show them the same thing too many times. What happens when you show OKC's defense the same thing too many times? What happens when you show them, a similar format, a similar creator? Putting them in a series against Denver again, I kind of think they would be the ones who come out the better for it, of the experience of taking their lumps the first time. They were so young. They were so inexperienced. They were finding their footing. Denver, by contrast, was supposed to be the more experienced team, and I think showed it in a lot of those huge spots, but ultimately, doesn't have as much headroom on that experience. Yes, maybe adding Cam Johnson with the depth, that opens up some things. Honestly, just erasing the disastrous bench minutes might be enough to swing a series like that in and of itself, so I don't want to take that off the board. But I just feel really confident with where the Thunder are right now, including their ability to match up with and deal with a team like Denver.
That's interesting because I look back on that series, Kyle, and I think, what if Aaron Gordon was healthy for Game 7?
Well, sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables there. I think, Rob, the thing about the bench thing is gigantic. I mean, and you think about all those pieces interplaying with Jokic, who's at this point, is he the best? He's in the conversation for best floor raising player of all time, and he just gets value out of things that no other player can. And then, I just talking about, Justin, what you were talking about with the matchups at the 4 and the 5. I just feel like the Nuggets have a lot of interesting options this time around. With, of course, can Hartenstein check Gordon? I'd have to go back and just kind of watch, away from the basket. I just feel like that's an advantage where Gordon is sort of the perfect crappy middle ground for both of their bigs, where he can put Chet in the weight room, and he's just so much faster than anybody really that plays that position, and more athletic. So if he's healthy and their bench is playing well, it's really hard to glean a ton from last year, right? Because Murray's even playing better too.
Ringer NBA Show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, Missouri, the wait is finally over. FanDuel Sportsbook is live in the Show Me State. Right now, new customers can get $5 and get $300 in bonus bets, win or lose. Plus, this week only, every customer gets a no-sweat bet every day. So even if your bet doesn't hit, you'll get bonus bets back to keep the action going. So download FanDuel today or head to FanDuel.com/RingerNBA and join the excitement because Missouri, it's time to play your game with FanDuel. 21 plus and present in Missouri. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER for a new customer offer. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. For all customer offer, opt-in required each day. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $20. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. The holidays move fast, and Amazon Prime keeps you in control with fast and free delivery. We've all been there. Family plans are fluid. Somebody's not coming. Suddenly they are coming, and you're excited about it. You want to get them a gift, so you hop on Amazon Prime, line that up with their interests, and it's easy to do because Amazon has everything. Prime's fast shipping is always there for you during the holidays, especially when it's last minute, and it just can't wait. Need that last minute gift or holiday essential? It's on Prime. Head to Amazon.com/Prime to shop now.
Yeah, I think we'll look back on this era, and obviously Jokic will probably first and foremost is like the guy. But I think there's going to be a lot of love and a lot of wondering if Aaron Gordon might just be the ultimate role player for maybe all time. Like we've talked about him in maybe like the Robert Horry sort of conversation. He definitely transcends that in terms of like his impact. Like Horry was much more in between, would have games, whereas Gordon is having series where he's swinging.
Was Horry more of a moment guy? I almost feel like Gordon was a little more between the between
That's
the
a great
peaks.
way of putting it.
Yeah,
he just has those moments that you're going to see on a highlight reel before every playoff game. Whereas Gordon is just the perfect role player, not just for Jokic, but practically every team because he marries the size and now has the shooting to complement that in a way that I can't think of another single player.
Oh, he's a fucking winner, like through and through. And I think a lot of that is his development. It's him accepting that role. It's him understanding not just like, what do you need from me when I become a Denver Nugget, but what do you need from me in every successive year of that process as the team is evolving. You need to shoot more. You need to handle more. You need to handle these sorts of defensive assignments. There just aren't many supporting players in the league who can do the breadth of all of that stuff. So yes, he changes any series he's involved in, and we certainly hope he's healthier sooner than later. But in the meantime, like that is a taxing thing, not having Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown for potentially, weeks and certainly into months of the season. That's a big deal. Also, the way that these standings break up in terms of what a bracket would look like OKC is going to be the number one seed in the West. I think we can say that pretty confidently now, unless something absolutely disastrous happens from this point forward. But it seems entirely possible that, Houston and Denver could face each other in the second round. Like they could be taking one another out in a way that negates some of their chances, at least for the purposes of the pie.
Right. Denver and Houston are just like Godzilla and Mothra going at it for 7 games. Meanwhile, Shea's just going to bed at 8 p.m. and drinking milk and just having a nice old evening.
But collectively, I think we're zeroing in on kind of a theme here, which is between these 3 teams, I would be very surprised if one of them does not win the NBA title. Kyle, when you were breaking down your percentages, they sound pretty similar to mine, which is collectively, I'm at about 70% between these 3 teams. OKC, Denver, Houston. 70% of the pie. Justin, was that about where you were in your breakdown as well?
Yeah, I was 35, 23, 18. Kyle was 40, 20, 10. Rob, how do you have it?
So I'm at 40, 16, 14. So I see it as a pretty big drop from the Thunder to where the Nuggets and the Rockets are. And some of that is just, I don't think the Thunder are a team with basically anything to prove, despite what their nightly effort might show you about like their belief in that idea. Versus Denver and Houston do have stuff to figure out. Like they do have rotation questions. They do have young guys who still need to figure it out. They have, just like the solvency of their half-court offense in Houston's case, despite how amazing it's been. But like when really pushed and shoved, what does that look like? And for Denver, the questions are usually more defensively oriented.
The Reed thing is going to be in the playoff. That's going to be a thing for Houston.
No doubt.
I do think they're going to have to start to figure out, as brilliant as he's been, his confidence is just to the moon. That defensively, that's going to be an issue because in any serious game that they're in, it's something that they have to account for. The question is, how much will it matter? Can they survive it if they're going to be really good offensively?
I'm glad you brought that up because he's just been absolutely cooking. Like I haven't I can't remember a player that's gone from barely getting minutes to looking like one of the essential players on a championship level team. He's just absolutely shooting lights out, and he's fit in and giving them a dimension that they haven't had before. But you're right. When we're doing the matchups, which is crazy to think because this is November 30th, we're already flashing ahead to the Western Conference Finals matchups. But if you're facing the Thunder and it's the Rockets, I assume like he has to guard Dort at best, and Dort just like his bosom is probably weighs more than Reed's entire body.
Bosom.
He's just going
That's
to
the
bury him
place.
into the basket.
Shout
It's a
out
very
to
barrel
Dort's
chested
bosom.
sort of guy.
Yeah.
What
No,
goes
you're
on
not.
in
You're
that
not wrong
brain?
about that.
What goes on in that brain that bosom is the first?
We've been asking for many years, Kyle. I'm glad you can come in with fresh eyes because it just washes
Bosom.
over me at this point.
Not only the body part, but the term. I'm not trying to snag on that, Justin, but
I'm a freak, but not in like the cool Giannis way, unfortunately.
Right.
But to the Reed Shepherd part of this, his emergence in that role that you were describing, Justin, of going from like non-factor for the Rockets to now like a pretty essential part of the rotation, to me is one of the central reasons why we have to consider them as one of the elite contenders in the league. It's the effect that Kevin Durant has had on this team. It's Alperen Şengün's evolution, kind of orchestrating and working as a hub. And it's Reed, and maybe even to a lesser extent, Josh Okogie too, who have like plugged really essential holes in the lineup. And now all of a sudden they just look really complete, really well-rounded, certainly physically formidable in all the ways we've already talked about, but even just on an execution level, like they're just a tough team to reckon with.
I'm not trying to sound aggrieved, but you guys made fun of me again for shouting out Josh Okogie, and you guys made fun of me for drafting AJ Mitchell last year. And I just want to circle back and say,
Okay.
how you like me now, Rob?
First of
Rob,
all,
literally
how
no
you
one-
like me now?
No one criticized
we
you for AJ
drafted
Mitchell.
AJ Mitchell.
Justin and I together.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Just
right.
chew on that, man. That's all I'm saying. No, I
Did
want
I
to say
think Josh Okogie was going to make a difference this season? I did not. Did he show anything over the last 3 years of his career?
It's just like, no,
What
Josh
are you,
Okogie
Statler
is-
and Waldorfing me? What is happening right now?
That was you,
Cookie
man.
Monster.
You were talking like that. I don't know what that was about. There's something interesting though about Reed's shooting that I've been noticing. This is just a little dorky. The way Steph, I'm not comparing him to Steph. In terms of the shots he gets to, it's a little more the CP3 elbow stuff that he's been hitting. And the shooting is fast. They're different players. So I want to be clear. I'm not comping him to Steph, and I never have. But the way that the types of shots that he hits, where he is coming off of those exit cuts where he's moving backwards and they like backpedaling into threes and hitting them, those are shots that are really difficult to hit, especially at his size with the closeouts that he's seeing. And that adds a wrinkle to what they do that is just, they didn't have it last year. Fred VanVleet wasn't hitting those shots.
No.
Well, Rob mentioned the balance earlier. As we're recording this at almost 7 p.m. PT on Sunday, we've talked a lot about the offense. Second in offense in the NBA over the course of the full season. Currently second in the NBA in defense.
Pretty good.
Pretty wild.
Yes. And also of note on this Sunday, they just sent Keontae George to absolute hell today. And look, the Jazz and Keontae George are not like the playoff standard, but I do think it's one of those instructive things where it's like that borderline starter on your team that you really rely on, or that guy coming off the bench who's been good for you all season. The Rockets are just going to X those guys out. Like they're just not going to be big enough or physical enough or competitive enough to hang in a series against Houston. And now that they put all that pressure on you offensively too, there really is nowhere to hide on either end of the court.
So, Rob, do you have anybody else? Because Kyle was at 10 for Houston, so he won't. Do you have anybody else with double-digit pie after this?
I do not.
Yeah, I do not either. What's your next team on your list?
My next team is I have two teams at 7% apiece, and they are to me kind of at the forefront of the Eastern Conference. The Knicks and the Pistons both 7% apiece.
You go East already here? Oh,
I mean,
I went
we've
East
already
too.
gone through 70% of the title going to the West. At this point, it's just like one of
The
these
numbers
teams
game.
has to get to the finals, and then something could happen and they could win.
I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking about it that way. So that's logically sound. Yes, you're right.
I thought about it the same way, but I only have one team with 8% pie, and that is the New York Knicks before I go back to the West. Kyle, who do you have next?
I just kind of stayed. I mean, I don't go East until, gosh, I have a flat tier here of Wolves, Warriors, Lakers at 6%.
Oh.
And then I get to Cavs at 4%. Yeah, that's my next tier. And then it gets very slivery as we get down to the bottom. But
Okay, why don't we start with the Knicks then? Because it sounds like Rob and I are in agreement that they're at the very least the next up.
Yeah. I think that not only are they the most talented team in the East, Justin, but they've shown that they have the mettle and flexibility to get through multiple playoff rounds, which no other Eastern Conference team can say. So they have a lot of kind of wind at their back historically in terms of what this core is. And then, yes, there's a lot of work in progress with the defense. There's still work in progress with the offense in some ways. But overall, I just don't really see like an overwhelming reason to think that the Knicks aren't going to be in the NBA Finals. Like the Pistons have made a hell of a case, but they're going to be in, like we've already seen how those two teams kind of match up and push each other. Fascinated to see it if we get it again. But the Knicks deserve to be at this point in the conversation.
Yeah, the offense is blistering, and that's the one thing that we probably didn't have an elongated stretch of last year. And as Rob mentioned, it hasn't been particularly smooth, even though the points are getting put up. They had 41 in the first quarter against the Raptors alone at home. But still, like it just, without OG and Anunoby, we should mention, it just feels like there's something there that could be the trump card in the entire East race. And while the Pistons record suggests that they are on another level, like 2.5 games back, as long as the Knicks like catch a good stretcher, I think they could vault themselves into the top spot there. And also it's nice to see Josh Hart kind of play himself into being Josh Hart again. I guess, Kyle, he's just the type of guy who needs to play 38 minutes a game and just like thrash around the court for that long. Part of it is because the efficiency typically isn't there, although he is shooting the ball better than usual of late, but it just feels like he's the type of guy you want to throw out there to just gobble up rebounds. Like he is like one of those hungry hippos. And that's what he's been doing as a starter. 4 games, 17, 12, and 7 basically in 37 minutes. And so it's nice to see him kind of be in the mix of all this, because he was the guy I was worried about perhaps had to be a little bit more diminished if they were going to be a little bit more refined offensively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess if you're kind of looking at what he provides, it's sort of a statistical accoutrement, where it's I guess if you're looking at these guys,
get this guy out of here.
I don't know why that did it for me, but it did.
I thought about it before I was going to say it, and I was like, I know this will piss them off, so I'm going to say it. Anyway,
sound like a Muppet.
Yes, the statistical accoutrement. If you're looking at most people, I think people think in broad terms of like, does a role player hit a shot? Does a role player make a cut? And Hart is he's a little bit more of a little thing kind of a player, where if you wanted to make some kind of an argument for maybe it takes a broader sample to sort of see those things sort of like come to the bubble up to the surface. But I think the other thing for the Knicks that's a little more just obvious and on the face of this is they made a shift here. They're trying to draw more out of their offensive talent. They're trying to get more out, grow offensively, whereas they from developing and build upon last year. But if you look at the other teams that are sort of in this conversation, of the teams that hypothetically could contend, other than the in Denver, is there another team that really? I'm trying to think. There wasn't a coaching change or a stylistic change to this extent among the teams that are contending, right? I mean, Ime's in place, so sure. The Knicks are sort of like navigating and negotiating all of those things too. So it makes sense that they be coming along now.
I guess the only question in terms of that stylistic change is, do you consider the Miami Heat to be a title contender? And maybe we'll get to that part of the conversation a little later, because
big one. Yeah,
they've certainly changed a lot.
The Knicks have more pressure release valves to their offense. If you're comparing them to the Pistons, it's just kind of like, does Cade have it going? And let's see how much Jalen Duren has leapt. The Knicks have more credible pressure release valves on offense, I think, than any other team in the East.
And Hart is part of that. Like when you kick out to him, defenses won't always respect him as a shooter, but he's good at counter driving and keeping the ball moving. Like he's good at all that stuff in flow. And honestly, for the Knicks, if you're gonna have Karl Anthony Towns, who remains a huge defensive liability and someone that can be targeted, along with Jalen Brunson, who is a significant defensive liability and can be targeted, you have to find these ways to be really competitive on the margins of games. And Josh Hart is so good at that shit. And Mitchell Robinson, when he's like an offensive rebounding force, is so good at that stuff. And so if their offense is high functioning as it is, even if it is kind of feeling it out at this stage, and you're getting some of that transitional play or some of the margin benefit, like that is where Josh Hart can prove his worth to this team and where he's really come to sing in these recent weeks for sure.
It's a little disappointing that it hasn't been with Mitchell Robinson at center. It's just like he's constantly dealing with injuries. And if you had a long-term concern, like he's always seemingly going to be dealing with those sorts of injuries. I do wonder if they start to wonder about him at the deadline, getting someone a little bit more surefire that they can count on for those minutes, especially because he's going to be a free agent down the road. But we'll see. I mean, it's a good start, and they're right there hanging with the Pistons, who I unfortunately don't have until I get to another East team and then the Pistons.
Wow.
So I only have them with 3% pie. Kyle, what'd you have the Knicks at, by the way?
3.
Okay.
3%. And are they your highest East team, Kyle?
Well, I'm just basically ranking the teams. I didn't even, we can see the error of my ways here.
It's okay.
It's pretty obvious. But I mean, mine's
your
more
pie,
of a
man.
ranking.
Yeah. You got to eat it at the end of the day. It's not our problem.
Well, the way I just talked trash to you about AJ Mitchell, I figure you're going to make me eat my pie, Rob. Yeah.
So I have Knicks. I have a West team. I have the Cavs, and then I have the Pistons. I have the Cavs at 4, despite all evidence to the contrary, and the Detroit Pistons at 3%. I think with the Pistons, it's just more of like I kind of need more of a sample to believe in it. Whereas with the Cavs, at the very least, I've seen them just high octane, just hitting a stride. And I think you could write a lot of the issues off they're encountering now to injuries. And if anything, I do wonder playing through the injuries now gets guys like Jalen Tyson in, gets some of these like role players minutes, gets them more Evan Mobley at center minutes to figure things out down the road. Now, this is basically turning into like the coin flip corollary where it's like, oh, they're injured now, but they won't be later on, which is definitely not going to happen. But I could see it all coming together in a way that I believe in them as a title winner, in the way that even with the Pistons as currently constructed, I'm not so sure, especially in the first year where we're taking them very seriously, that they could really win the title. And that's ultimately where I kind of drilled down on the exercise.
It's fair. I think the track record for the Pistons, though, is a little longer than you give them credit for. Because that was a team that was like a foul call or a loose ball away from like beating the Knicks, if not pushing the Knicks to 7 at bare minimum. Like they were right there in that series.
Fearless. I mean,
it's true.
So like the core of this team has been there and has taken steps forward in really meaningful ways. And then on top of it, like they're 16-4 through 20 games. And they have shown to be not just really incredible in this regular season, but really balanced in a way that they were not. And frankly, more balanced than the Knicks, if you want to look at that particular comparison. The best versions of the Cavs can give them a run for their money in that regard. But who knows if and when we see that version of the Cavs? Who knows, as you alluded to, JV, if a healthy Cleveland team is even in the cards for any of these playoffs. They just seem to always be fighting it by the end of things. They get grandfathered into this conversation because the Cavs are good and we haven't seen them healthy enough to really like rule them out. But ultimately, like I just have a really hard time believing in where Cleveland is, even in knowing we've barely seen Darius Garland play this season, even in knowing Max Strus has not played at all this season. Like they've been down in the rotation and all kinds of guys have had to step up. But I don't know. Like I don't know that if we saw a Cavs Pistons playoff series, if I would feel great about the Cavs' chances in that.
Kyle, where are you on the Cavs?
Similar. I mean, I have a hard time trusting them. And also, I mean, we've seen that they've had some struggles even when they were healthy. I mean, there's been people kind of taking them to task about Evan Mobley's, supposed offensive leap. We've been kind of tapping our feet, looking at our watch, like, when is this going to actually happen? I had somebody texting me the other day about like, if anyone ever mentions Kevin Garnett and Evan Mobley in the same sentence again, I'm going to kill them, basically. And I think there's that. There's Garland staying healthy. I mean, I trust Donovan at this point, but it's just kind of like if we're gonna have a Helio Donovan team in the playoffs, I don't think he's capable of spectacular things, but I don't think he's capable of overcoming that.
Yeah, this is probably the best version of Donovan Mitchell that we've seen thus far. I was trying to do it out if Wemby or someone that we expect to be in the top 5 doesn't end up having the requisite number of games. Wemby's probably the prime candidate for that just because he's out right now. But like the 5, it seems locked unless something disrupts it in terms of all NBA is Luka, Jokic, Giannis, Wemby, Shea. Thank you. I think Mitchell would probably be the next one up. I guess Tyrese Maxey might be in the conversation. Am I missing anybody else?
and Steph, like they'd probably be in that conversation too. It would be pretty competitive. Like once you get into that next group, there's a lot of guys who are pretty compelling.
Did you guys see the video of Donovan Mitchell playing drums? Did you all see this?
No. When was this?
Like, I think he was being dead serious, which more power to him. I love a confident person, but he was like, I think I'm like the best drummer alive. Like he was like being for real. It seemed like it. And then what cracked me up was they had him in this commercial where they clearly had someone play over the part that he played. I'll let the public decide. I just was like, because he was noodling around. I was like, does he suck? I couldn't tell, but you got to go look this up. I thought it was pretty funny.
No one knows I play this. This is the most amount of people I've played in the since like the 6 games. This is way worse than a playoff game. This right here, this is way worse.
So it's John Bonham, Dave Grohl, Donovan Mitchell. Top 3.
That's the lineage.
Bernard Purdy's got to be up there, but yeah.
But Donovan Mitchell does not have drummer energy. Like that's not his vibe whatsoever.
It's true. It's solo artist who isn't supposed to take 5 minutes as a solo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the trade-off here. He's been absolutely electric to start, but I do wonder when Mitchell is putting up numbers at this rate, I often find the trade-off is the offense doesn't have the sort of organization that it needs to. And I will say when Garland has played most of the time, today notwithstanding, they got kind of handed against the Celtics. They stormed back late and made more of a game, but they started out really ice cold, just looked completely flat in a game that I was kind of expecting them to really need to prove themselves because the Celtics in their own right have kind of been flying under the radar a little bit. Garland's been good. The offense has been really good when he's on the floor. The defense has been very bad when he's on the floor, but he just like seemed completely flat to start with. And so I don't know what to make of it. Just seems like they need Mitchell to be on this other level, especially because Mobley is so timid and doesn't seem like he's the type of guy who really wants to like take his next leap by the throat, KG style. He's more like, oh, let me work on my mid-range jumper and really refine it as he puts his pinky in the air, unfortunately. So they need Garland in order to have the counterbalance to Mitchell, but then you're getting a lesser Mitchell. And so it's just very confusing to me. Like there's a lot here to like, Rob, but ultimately it's never as good as you want it to be.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe from the two of you who are just turning your noses up at the defensive player of the year, who's also quite good offensively, admittedly not Kevin Garnett. Like Evan Mobley is really freaking good. I don't know why he is the poster child for what all that ails the Cavs when he is the guy who's out there and playing and quite good and anchoring their defense. So Evan Mobley innocent as far as I'm concerned.
But the offensive
you
leap.
nodded when I said that, so you don't even.
He's not Kevin Garnett.
No,
he's
you were
not
like,
Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, his leap, his offensive leap. We didn't. I mean, it's just it just hasn't. He looked at Rob's face.
He's putting up like 20 and 10, and is one of the best defensive players in the league. I don't really see a problem with that.
I mean, we're talking like 1%er stuff here. Like we're putting expectations on him that we typically don't thrust upon anyone except for like MVP candidates, but that's the ceiling. Especially after last season, it seemed like he was on the verge of being that guy. And we should mention, like, he is broadening out his repertoire. The mid-ranger is more of a part of it. He's taking more threes than ever before. And so perhaps this is the step, like the slight step back to get to the leap forward, because his numbers are pretty similar to last year, but to not see any like profound progress, especially while Allen is out and he's playing more center. It's just kind of like, all right, it's just always a little bit slower than you want with him, which is frustrating because this is the real take the season by the throat season for the Cavs. And it's just been kind of flat. And that was the overall concern after so many playoff disappointments.
Look, that's a fair objection. And it's the reason why when things start falling out, Donovan Mitchell is really the only guy who picks up the pieces and then has to push his usage to ridiculous extremes basically every single time. He's quite good at it. But as you mentioned, Justin, it does flatten them out in terms of the way they execute. It does limit the impact of the system that drove so much of their regular season success last year. And so then you end up with just like another version of a Cavs team that's running into the wall. And we haven't seen anything yet to suggest that they have a way to mount that wall. And maybe they'll get there by the end of the year. Donovan Mitchell has been on record saying like he likes this sort of challenge for them. He likes confronting it and figuring out ways that they can be better. But now they have to go out and do it. And it's pretty tough to find that as a team collectively, especially when guys are in and out of the lineup all the time.
Also, the blue LeBron era throwbacks, which goddamn are old. That's a throwback now. But on the other hand, Those are sick. They should wear those
They are
more
sick.
often.
I do like them. Now the Wizards bringing back the gold, absolutely not.
That
No,
wasn't
I
like
like
a
the gold.
halcyon
It was
days,
more of a
yeah.
copper, right? It was kind of a
Kyle,
like the
no.
Gilbo era, like the. I
We
always kinda
buried it
liked
for a
them.
reason, you know.
I
Like
always kinda
just
liked them.
don't dig that up, please.
Not gonna lie, I always liked them, and not even the retro thing. So yeah.
So I had the Cavs at 4%. Rob, you had them at 3.
I also have them at 4%. So I have
Okay.
Knicks and Pistons 7%, Cavs at 4%.
Kyle, what do you have the Cavs at?
I said it already. 4.
Oh, sorry. Just trying to get an accounting here, my friend. Where do you have the Pistons?
They're further down my ranking, so they have a lower number, but they're at 1. I have a flat tier at the bottom of 1-1-1. Yeah, but that's
Guys,
not
they're
possible because of
they're
these. All right, I
16
screwed
and
up the
4.
exercise.
They're
Okay, what do you want
16
from
and
me?
4. I'm just.
But you're also thinking
I'm
about what's their
flummoxed.
likelihood of beating a Western Conference team is another factor of this
Yes.
too, which is kind of what that was the ranking thinking here is it's low. I just don't, based on what we were talking about, like the things the Knicks have in their roster construction versus some of these other teams. I just feel like the Pistons, as awesome as they are and as much fun as I think they need to figure some things out, as we were talking about on the potluck, like if they go get a Lowry Markkanen,
Sure,
it's that kind of thing is those are the teams to me that are really interesting, which is you're figuring in health, but you're also figuring in there are some teams that could climb up and get a bigger piece of the pie if they make a move like that at the deadline.
But that's also baked in to the initial piece of the pie. Like the fact that they have, if you have assets to make a move, then maybe you get a slightly bigger slice than the teams that are theoretically just as good as you, but don't have those assets.
They're the growth stock, I think, of this entire exercise, where you look at the success that they're having now and you say, there's a lot of ways that they can get better, even without having to swing for a trade. Ivy working his way back into the starting lineup, perhaps, or playing a full allotment of minutes. Tobias Harris in his own right hasn't played a lot. I mean, Asar still has a lot of room to grow, especially offensively. Holland is out there young and still figuring things out. Cade hasn't shot the ball particularly well. He'll probably get there eventually, I assume. And so, like, there's a lot of little things to say, like, oh, they have this great record, but I actually think they're going to be better if the record doesn't necessarily show it. Probably later on when all these things start to click, if they do indeed click. Having said that, I just ultimately kind of fall back into the, like, do I see them hoisting the title in this year? And that's why I have them at 3. So, I don't know. I just don't believe it for this year. It's probably my own lack of imagination. But right now, I'm leaning on the veteran teams and Cavs and Knicks.
I mean, you're just sounding like someone who needs to get bodied by a beef stew screen. Like that, I just need him to lay you out, Justin, to knock some sense into you. Please.
That was my kink.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Okay. First of all, it is your kink. Like, let's not make this a hypothetical. Like, we all know who you are, and we're not here to shame you for it.
I don't know what that means.
Get that weighty bosom on your straightened beef. All right. I got to ask a question here. Where do the Spurs figure into everything for you guys? Did they get a piece? Because they have some pretty massive, outstanding variables that could come back into play for them and make them interesting.
So I have the Lakers as the next team up, getting the largest percentage of pie from the West. I have then the Wolves, Warriors, and then the Spurs. So part of that is just because injuries, and I can't remember a team not only dealing with these sorts of injuries, but also trying to wed its two best players together and actually get them on the court for a significant amount of minute allotment, like in December practically, and being like, they're going to win the title. And so I think history starts to play a factor in this. But I only gave them 1%. I gave the Lakers 5. I gave the Wolves 2, and I gave the Warriors 1. The Warriors, I can't make heads or tail of at this point.
I did not give the Warriors any pie whatsoever. That is that's not a championship team, even though it has many championship players and coaches involved. Like, that's just not what it looks like. I gave the Spurs 0.5% of a piece of pie.
You always break out the percentages or the decimals.
Look, sometimes all that's left is like the crumbs at the bottom for that everybody else left behind, and you just got to go to town with what you got. Ultimately, Kyle, you're right. Like the elements that they have working for them are exceptional and notable to a degree that San Antonio could walk into a bunch of different series and feel like they have the best player in the series. That is a crazy place to be for a young team. They're so young, though, and they don't know what they're doing really at all in terms of playoff execution yet. And so until I see it even a little and just like seeing them go through that process, I don't know how I could bank on them to even have a 1% chance of winning the title. Kyle, you raised your hand. Yes, I will assign you the home ec assignment of carrying the baby home. And also, what is your question?
I'd like to address the chair. They have one guy who's been in the playoffs, who's done a lot of work in the playoffs. Granted, he kind of notoriously missed a lot of shots in the playoffs. Harrison Barnes. They also have De'Aaron Fox. They have some guys who have been in the playoffs, I will say. But I will also ask you this question. Where do I have to draw a line on the standings to determine who the Spurs couldn't beat in a playoff series? Like, who do you think they are capable? Because do you think if they got in a series, if Vic is hitting on all cylinders and they're playing well, that they couldn't absolutely no chance couldn't beat the Rockets? Like, it couldn't happen? Is that out of the question? I mean,
Here's
like
the thing. It's
Warriors,
not,
Lakers, they could beat them in a series, but yeah.
But it's not can you beat the Rockets in a series? It's can you beat the Lakers and then the Rockets and then the Thunder? Like the overall layout is what I don't believe that the Spurs can do. I think they can push and challenge almost anybody. Maybe not to beat them, but make it a super competitive 6 game or even like squeeze out a 7th game. That's within their power to do. I just don't think teams this young basically ever win 4 series in a row.
To Kyle's question, though, which I think is a good one, my line of demarcation is at the Lakers. I think, like, if things go right, if Wemby is clicking, if there aren't any sort of bumps in the road with Fox and Wemby, and also working in Harper off the ball on top of that, and then Castle when he comes back, there's just so many variables on top of variables. I don't know that they would win a series against the Rockets, if only because, like, the Rockets do, if Eason is back healthy, like, they have the big wings in order to throw on Wemby and kind of impede his dribble, like teams have had success marginally to start the season. And then you have the bigs waiting at the rim for the downhill drivers, where that's where a lot of the supplementary power is really coming from in Castle and in Fox in particular. So it's really like, okay, Devin Vassell and Julian Champagny and all these shooters, like, you have to beat us. And like Harrison Barnes, who actually is shooting the lights out this season, just like, oh, we're not going to just give you the corner that you've just been sitting in for practically 2 months at this point. Like, you actually have to move and then shoot. And so I think it'd be pretty dicey. I don't think they'll beat the Rockets in a series, but to your point, like, I think they would give a lot of teams a lot of guff. And so that's why I gave them the 1% pie. But it sounds like, Kyle, you were higher in the pie.
2. I give him a 2%.
Okay.
But all that, Kyle, sounds like you're really in. What'd you get? 2. No, I just
so far apart.
Maybe my Wemby fear and respect just needs to be recalibrated a little bit, because I'm just like, I don't know, some of the highs that I've seen and the fact that we haven't seen them kind of get together as a team. I just have a healthy fear, a healthy respect for what he's capable of, and defensively, especially like in a series, it's just it and they have a lot of weapons, man. Even if their mature players play great, their young guys give you a little bit. I guess I'm just kind of I'm a little just keeping an eye on it.
I think that fear and respect is good. I would just say to keep in mind, like, for some reason, the analog we bring up all the time with Wemby is Steph, because it's like they are similar freaks on opposite sides of the ball that are just kind of breaking the game. And Steph had to like run into the Spurs head first and then run into the Clippers head first. It's like you just have to take that a little bit in a way that I think we've seen Wemby struggle, as you alluded to, JV, with like some of the dribble pressure and some of the double teaming. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to struggle in a playoff series, but there just is a learning curve that he's going to have to go through, and that all of these young guards are going to have to go through collectively, and they're going to be better for it, but they're not going to win the title this season, even, I regret to say, at a 2% clip.
Yeah. So, Rob, who do you have at the top of this, like, lesser West tier? Who gets your
So I have the Lakers and the Wolves both at 4%.
Okay.
As
so
my
you're
next
higher on
West
the
teams.
Wolves.
I mean, I think we just have to show a little respect to a core that's made back-to-back Western Conference finals. Like, they know how to do this.
That's why I ultimately gave them the 2, but based on recent results, which the past 2 games have been better, they've actually won close games.
Not just that, they have finally beaten winning basketball teams. Congratulations to the Minnesota Timberwolves for joining us this NBA season.
But that really is kind of like the debate right there, where it's just like, oh, you really do need to just get over this weird little hurdle that you found yourself in. And perhaps like the bench is something else we could talk about, because those bench units have been atrocious, especially defensively.
Yeah.
But a lot of the 2% is coming from just muscle memory. Because like Ant's had it in moments. I thought like to finish off the game against the Celtics was pretty key for him because it's been a while since he had that. Basically like bobbled the ball and then hit a dagger shot, which I haven't seen probably ever. But like this, we keep asking Ant to be like the sun, the star, and the moon, and to really just like make good on a lot of those Jordan comps, as tepid as they might be to begin with. But like at the very least to start the season, he's always been like, nah, I'm like just going to cruise through this. And he's doing that again. And so perhaps it's just timing. Perhaps it's just the recent results of struggling against good teams. But I'm just a little cold still, especially in comparison to some of these other teams when you see like the ball pinging, Kyle, between LeBron James, Luka, and Reeves. It's like, yeah, the defense is going to be a problem, but like, holy shit. Like, especially if they're keyed up to play that team again next year. That's why I lean Lakers.
2 questions. First one, do you think that the Wolves, true or false, the Wolves have the most to gain by going and getting another credible ball handler at the deadline?
They got to be among them, right? The backup stuff, they could really, really use it.
Most to gain amongst this set of teams or like overall?
Yeah, among this group. The teams that could really, I mean, they could level up in a serious way. I think if they went and got, Derek White's the name everybody always says, but I mean, I was like watching Peyton Pritchard. There's no way they're going to pry him away, but just somebody like that. If they just had one more guy, because Ant is he's a little bit better when he can sort of float between those two positions and come on and off the ball. But when he's being asked to be the sun and moon and stars, as Justin poetically said, it's
it's
stressing him in a way
out,
that, yeah, I was just curious about that. The other one was, has a team ever had 2 guys average 10 assists? Because it feels like the Lakers could do it.
Has anyone had
fucking phenomenal
3 guys to average 20 free throws a game? Because the Lakers might do that.
Okay. All right.
I'm just saying, it could happen. It just seems like LeBron is even kind of chilling and passing in a different way from the past. But I mean, I think their first couple games, they were both averaging 10. I think I've been just kind of keeping an eye on it. It's a little bit of an anomaly. The only other time I could think that it was possible was like Harden and CP3 in that 17-18 range, but they were doing so much ISO and stuff. It just wasn't conducive to that. But I don't know, just a little statistical thing.
The Lakers are just really fucking good. In a way that I'm like still trying to wrap my head around exactly what they are as a playoff team. We see them right now, present tense. We see what these guys are doing playing off each other. It's phenomenal basketball. They have ultimately the creator who is the best weak link hunter in the entire game in Luka. Like, he will find your guy who cannot guard and drag them to every single action until you take him off the floor. They also themselves put a lot of weak links out there. And so if you are subscribing to the theory that this is what drives modern day basketball, it's like, can you have a stout lineup that cannot be targeted? The Lakers are not the case study for that. And frankly, to the point that like Rui Hachimura is not allowed to have a bad game. Like, this is a team that leans really hard on like Gabe Vincent and Marcus Smart, and like first to be healthy and then to be good. And so if those things are not all clicking at the same time in a playoff series, I just get a little concerned. So the depth and the defense are kind of my biggest areas of consideration for them. But what they can do offensively is sort of beyond reproach. And as far as the playoffs go, like, is tailored exactly to what should drive you through multiple rounds.
Yeah, Kyle, the Lakers might be the other option if we're not saying the Wolves are the team that needs to go out and get somebody, because it seems like the Lakers are a prime candidate as well, if only to solve the defensive concerns that we've been lamenting over for practically a calendar year at this point. I can't tell if it's just recency bias and seeing these guys all on the floor and clicking and looking so good, and LeBron getting past the sciatica. I'm just like, God damn, like, I only see the good right now, because the defense has been pretty suspect, I will say, to be kind, thus far. And I don't think DeAndre Ayton's own sort of like side emergence is really going to help all that much. At the very least, you have perhaps a big body who will play capable minutes. That's one thing. But they need someone to fill out the wing rotation, to have any sort of like defensive stopper in there, because I think that we're ultimately going to get back Occam's razor with this team, where it's just like, who's guarding anybody? I guess the one counter to play devil's advocate on my own point would just be like, now Luka is at a different level. He's clicking, and you could tell because he's arguing with the refs way more. I think I give him another 2 or 3 weeks before we kind of like just let all the sad and good tidings we had for how sad he was for a while and just focus on the fact that he complains every 2 seconds. But it's a whole other issue. But he is engaged. Reeves looks reborn and re-engaged in a way that he wasn't even last year when he played really well. And then LeBron's just worked in seamlessly. And so, I don't know, there's a discussion in my head. Where do you fall on that, Kyle?
I was gonna say, is sciatica ever really? Sciatica is kind of like Vecna, right? It's like it does its damage, and then is it ever really? Rob hates Stranger Things so much. I'm really picking.
I don't hate it. It's just like it's an irrelevant presence in my life, except when you bring it up.
It's quite
like,
bad.
is it really ever gone? And then it comes back with a vengeance. And it's, yeah, when you look at the perimeter defensive stuff, it's like you wish you could get more out of Jared Vanderbilt, for instance, on that. You know, Cam Reddish, they thought for a while was going to be a part of that, and that fart sound went away. And then Dorian Finney-Smith inexplicably wants to leave, or they could have had Josh Okogie, who would have been a nice swap in there. That was a joke, but no, I just think.
Is it?
It is,
it is true. I mean,
clearly there's some truth to it.
For comping them together, Luka is just. I just wanted to say, Luka is like one of the all-time creating a shot that really just did not seem like it was there. He does that so often, where I'm like, "There's not a shot there," and Luka just disrespectfully shoots it in whoever is in front of him's face. And there's just the way he manipulates the game. I just feel like in a playoff series, they are going to burn really bright and having incredible moments and like losing 5. Maybe, I could see that just happening. It could be an all-time fun 2 results, like imbalance in terms of how fun their games could be and what it turns out to be success-wise.
I also, we didn't even really mention him in the Rockets segment, but like Dorian Finney-Smith will play basketball at some point and will be a part of their team. So like that's a great rotation that has a potential to get even better. And yeah, the Lakers do still miss players like that. I know for all of their success, like they are ready to turn the page. They are rightly like talking their shit right now as they take care of business against like a pretty soft patch in their schedule. They're really good. But Justin, you laid it out. Like not only are we holding the superstars to the 1%er standard, we're talking about like who can make an actual full-on title run, not just make things interesting, not just be feisty, not just upset or like, perceivably upset one of these teams like Denver or Houston, but who can actually make the run. And I think the Lakers have a shot, but they just have so much to get through to get all the way to the finish line, as do the Wolves. Like it's hard to bank on either of these teams with a significant percentage of pie, just in considering who they would have to beat to get it.
So I had them at 5. Rob had them at 4. Kyle, where are you on the Lakers?
I had them at 6. Actually, I gave the Warriors a little more benefit of the doubt than you guys did.
What do you have?
Just because I had the Wolves, Warriors, and Lakers in a flat 666 number, typically associated with me. But so yeah, I had them all kind of lumped together.
Justin, you've just been like a GIF machine this season. I don't know what's gotten into you.
Hey, it's GIF.
You're playing to the camera. You're ready for the 4K treatment.
That's right. Just put me in a little like shoulder content box next to Stranger Things, and you get the full Devil's Offering, I guess.
I can't wait.
Wow. So 6 for Wolves and 6 for Warriors. Is it just title?
Just because I could see them turning it on and having a run. I mean, but they're doing the thing that they said they didn't want to do this year, which is chasing it, which I know we might talk about that. We might get to the cup on this episode, which is kind of an interesting, like chasing it, trying to build something thing. The Warriors are just in that, but I just have a hard time ruling them out just based on, I don't know. I got to see them be killed once and for all,
I'm not saying that they're dead. I am simply asking you as one podcaster to another, which of the Warriors rotation players are good? And I'm asking because like I don't know. Like I no, genuinely, I'm watching them. I'm watching Brandon Pajemski, the night-to-night experience, and being like, what is this dude's deal? And why can't he simply string together cogent basketball for a week at a time? And you could ask the same thing up and down the road. Anyone who is not Steph or Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green, I simply do not know what they're doing. Or honestly, Will Richards, also innocent. Everyone else, I simply don't often know what they are doing.
Gary Payton, he's always there in crunch time, no matter what.
Player.
But that is kind of a damning detail. Like I say that with all due respect to Gary Payton, who's very good at what he does, but also incredibly and obviously flawed as a player. He is there in crunch time because there's like no one else that Steve Kerr trusts on this team.
Yeah, my head is kind of spinning on where we are with Jonathan Kuminga and whether or not he's buying in or not, or if he's on the team, if he's healthy, if everyone's behind him, if they're not, but they're pretending to be. It is a real roller coaster, and it seems like everyone's getting pretty tired of it. But you're right. I guess if we're going to power rank the rotation players after the big three, I assume are in their own separate category. Although even within that category, they're just not available all the time, including Steph, who's not available right now. Who's the most reliable?
Yeah.
Is it Moody? Maybe.
Is it?
I don't know.
Also, live correction. Apparently, it is Will Richard. We've been going back and forth all season on Will Richard versus Will Richards. We regret the error, Mr. Will Richard.
It's the first time you got one wrong.
Sorry.
So we'll let it slide.
Thanks.
Even Steph
it's probably Will Richard, but if you're grading on if you're not grading on a curve because Moody's an actual starter who has a more significant role.
Sure.
I would say Moody, but you're right. All the rotation stopgaps that they were hoping for just like haven't really worked out. Horford's available whenever he's around. Milton doesn't exist. He's just a dust in the wind at this point, or at least
still rehabbing and working his way back. Yeah, like there just hasn't been enough healthy and consistent and anything in terms of the supporting cast. It's on like an upward trajectory where I feel like, oh, by March and April, they're definitely going to have it all figured out. I'm more worried about the opposite, where by March and April, is Steph going to be running to the ground? Is Draymond going to be running to the ground? Is Jimmy going to be even more cantankerous than usual? I'm worried about all that stuff with Golden State at this point. They feel like a fairly mediocre basketball team to me. And all of our indicators right now say that that's kind of where they are.
Yeah, I gave them the 1%. Just out of deference, just out of like the Steph factor. But you're right. I guess like they have motivation to go out and swing something as well, but it's just not easy considering all the contracts that they have at the top of their books right there with Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond. So we'll see. Did anyone have anybody else getting pie?
I do. See, while you guys are dishing out to the Warriors, like here's your, 1% for old time's sake. I'm trying to like galaxy brain my way into like, okay, what happens if things get really weird? What happens if we have another breakthrough run through the Eastern Conference like what the Pacers went on? So I'm dishing out. I would love for you to guess, Justin. What do you have?
Are you going to say the Raptors?
I give 2% to the Toronto Raptors.
Oof. I don't see it.
I don't see it. Look, I don't necessarily see it, and frankly, in terms of an East team breaking through and then actually giving a West team a run for their money, I think the Knicks and the Pistons and probably the Cavs too, just like have a straight up better shot to compete in a series like that than the Raptors do. Toronto might just be like drawing dead against a good Western Conference opponent if they were to make it to the finals, which would be an incredible result to their season. But the defense is really legit. Like the offense has been good enough for long enough that I think we have to take it at least fairly seriously. Like I just think that they've been a very solid regular season team to this point in a conference where that might be good enough. Like that might get you through 2 rounds in the East. And if you can get through 2 rounds in the East, who's to say you can't just kind of headbutt your way through a couple more?
Let me get this straight though. In this hypothetical that you're suggesting here, a young, unproven team is going to win multiple playoff rounds and get to the finals.
If they play in the Eastern Conference, Kyle, yes. Okay. Like this is the threshold. Is if you play in the East, you have so many more allowances in terms of how flawed your team can be, how young your team can be, who your superstars are. I just think that you have a lot of give there.
Who's the worst team in the West that could win the East?
The Utah Jazz. I'm kidding. It's not actually the Utah Jazz. I am fucking with you, but it's a severe gap. We gave 70% to 3 West teams for a reason, and that's not even including the Lakers and the Wolves and the Warriors and all of them.
I want you to close your eyes and just go with me here. So,
literally, or what do you want?
Yeah, please.
Fuck it. All right, let's do it, Justin. Take us there.
It's mid-June. The confetti is falling. The songs are playing. We are the champions, but it's a Canadian inflected one, and so it's like Je are le champions.
They don't play in Quebec.
Well, close enough. And Adam Silver is here to announce the NBA Finals MVP award winner, and it's Brandon Ingram, right? Can you picture that? No, you can't, because it's never gonna fucking happen.
Look, I am not the person to picture that particular outcome, but I think that the Raptors deserve more acknowledgement for their play to this point. As a legitimate team to be taken seriously, than a team like Golden State does.
You're just trying to get a free meal in Toronto right now. No, I just think.
Let me tell you, I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
We got Danny Chow on our side. We can find something out. They're going to get. They're one of those teams that I think is going to move into the consciousness of the broader NBA fan and get. I think in the Cup specifically, I think they're going to have a chance to, because like we were saying, we're going to devote more time to that event on its own. But I just think there are types of teams that are chasing it, like the Warriors, who are trying to say, can we win something? Can we prepare? And then there's a team like the Raptors who are trying to learn to win together. I think like you all, it's very unlikely that they're going to do that in the playoffs, in my opinion. But I think they are better than people realize, I think, and better than I think we gave them credit for early in the season.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. When we do a follow-up to this episode, the Taken Seriously pie, they will have a very high percentage.
I'm just saying,
We're talking about the title.
If you take a team seriously in the East, they might just accidentally win the Eastern Conference, which is why I also gave the Miami Heat 1%, and I also gave the Orlando Magic 0.5%.
0.5. I gave Orlando and Miami both 1. Yeah.
I think they have an outside chance, but they have a chance.
I gave both of them 0.
0.
Yeah.
Incredibly rude.
Do we need to collaborate on a final pie here? This is where it gets pretty tricky.
Yeah. How do we want to make this compelling podcasting?
How about we do the math and then we zip through by magic of editing, and so the listeners will only hear the final version.
I love that plan.
All right. We just did some math. You're hopefully hearing some very wind chimey music that Isaiah put in here to denote a passage of time. Rob, do you want to read off what we calculated after hours of grinding the mathematics?
I simply love to read numbers, Justin. Thank you for this incredible honor. The biggest slice of the title pie as of November 2025. The Oklahoma City Thunder with 38% of the pie. The Denver Nuggets have 20% of the title pie. The Houston Rockets have 14% of the title pie. That's the vast majority of it, as we've discussed on this podcast. Not entirely surprising. The Knicks ended up with 6%. The Pistons and the Cavs both 4%. The Lakers 5%, and the Timberwolves 4%. And then just in a show of solidarity, of sharing, of generosity amongst ourselves, we have decided to give 1% each to the Spurs, Raptors, Heat, Magic, and Golden State Warriors.
Have some pie.
How do you guys feel about the way we divvied this up?
I like it. I think one heavy vote probably swayed some people's pie. Like the Pistons, you had 7% in the pie, whereas Kyle and I had 1 and 3.
Well, one of us had to correct the record,
But I, for instance, would view them as on a different level than some of the East teams. But, overall, I feel like it's pretty fair.
Okay.
Benevolent pie giving. Kyle, how do you feel?
I'm happy with this. I think it's more of a we hit it the top.
Sounds so passionate.
It's a top 3 conversation. I mean, I think the bigger question that the teams across the league are going to have to answer is, can that top 3, can that whatever it is, that huge percentage of the pie, can it be penetrated? And at this point, I kind of feel like no, but we'll see.
Yeah, it ended up being 72% between the 3 top Western Conference teams. I just, if we get to June and it's anyone but them, we'll probably need to eat some crow. Obviously, we'll be celebrating an incredible story, but I think I just would be shocked by that result, given everything we've seen so far.
Here's a question. Which team on the lower end of the pie will make us look stupid, or is the most likely to make us look stupid when we get to the playoffs late in June and April?
What do we consider to be is 4 and 5% lesser?
That seems a little too high. I feel like maybe someone from the below that category.
So only the 1%ers in the opposite direction, the 99th percentile of teams on the pie chart.
Right. Who's the dark horse, I guess, is what I'm ultimately asking. Spurs? I think it's Spurs.
Not for me.
I am a sucker, and I am drawn yet again to the Orlando Magic, a team that is almost top 10 on both sides of the ball, has yet to play anything resembling its best version of itself this season. If they find it, if they're able to kind of composite what's been driving them over the last couple of weeks with the best version of Paolo, that's a team that could be really competitive in the East. So maybe the 1% Orlando Magic could make us look a little foolish.
What's funny is when you sort by most recent games and you go by offense, the Magic are one of the best offense in the league over the past
They're humming.
5 to 10 games. Now, I don't remember a team, if we're going by history as president, being like, oh, we're not sure if the best player who ultimately defines our ceiling, we're not sure if he totally fits with what's going on here. If they ultimately win the title within the same season, probably not. But
you asked us for a hypothetical. Yeah, like look, ultimately we're forecasting, and this is a team that just has not figured itself out yet, and so that gives it some room for upward momentum.
It was kind of a 99 Knicks thing that could happen, right? I mean, of course, that was more of an injury. You just remove somebody and then the other pieces just sort of like come to life. But they're a team, man. I mean, in the East, I could see the Magic just straight up beating any of the teams in the East in a series. Like I don't even think that's not difficult to imagine. That could easily happen. So yeah, I think it's very possible that they, and if we're rationalizing it right now, I don't think that we can necessarily look too stupid, because I do firmly believe it could happen. So,
all right, why don't we wrap it there? We'll be back on Wednesday as usual. Thank you to Isaiah Blakely on production. Thank you to Victoria Valencia. Thank you to Ben Cruz. We'll talk to you next time. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.